Thanks again for having me. Maybe some of you followed the panel we had this morning on STOs, so this is in a way an interesting link up to that. And I'm going to actually talk, Pericles did a great job of talking about qualities of money and how to spend it, and I'm going to talk about how to actually create it, how to create money through the community. So this is the topic of ICOs, STOs. Now I have the privilege to have been co-authoring within PwC our global ICO study. We started with that actually in mid-2017, so we're probably the longest standing report on this phenomenon out there. This is in the 5th issue, came out this summer. Of course, it's all for free. You can download it, just enter PwC ICO Report, STO Report, and you can download the whole thing. We put a lot of effort into that. I want you to understand that one of the main issues we have in the industry, in blockchain, with the different currencies is just the quality of data, the quality of market data. So my team is actually doing a lot of manual search and work on actually getting these numbers together. I'm going to present you on the first few pages just a summary, the gist of the report, so you get a feeling of where we are in the current development of ICOs, STOs. I think that's something every one of you wants to know. And then I'm also going to talk what's holding us back, what are the things we probably need to fix, and how does it influence also tokenization of assets. Let's look at probably the favorite page that gets copied a lot and sent a lot through. We actually have a lawsuit going on about against a small consultancy who has just photocopied our report and changed the logos. So this is, if you're really looking back to 2016, where one of the first ICOs ever, the Ethereum one happened, you can see the development of all the different forms of kind of blockchain-based fundraising, ICOs they were called back then. This is when the report came in, and this is actually when the phenomenon really kicked off, which was mid-2017. And we all know, 2017, there was a craze around the price of Bitcoin. We saw the similar thing happening on the ICOs, but the real crazy year was actually 2018. And you're all aware, of the great large ICOs and token generating events that Telegram did, that EOS did, and this is reflected there. We actually had to color them specifically out because they kind of distort the averages. So if you're a startup or you want to use an ICO, STO generating mechanism to actually fund money, fundraise your company, here are some of the statistics. What's very interesting is how long does it take to raise the money, and these numbers have actually gone down. In 2017 it was 29 days from beginning to end. Now it's 58 and it's becoming even longer, and this is interesting. Why is it becoming longer? At the same time, the amount that gets raised, the average amount, has reached about 12 million. And if you're familiar with startup funding, that's already beyond bootstrapping, that's beyond the friends, family, and fools kind of investment. So with 12 million, a startup can already achieve a lot. So from that sense, very attractive. And of course, the number of ICOs has also picked up a lot. So this is just how the industry looks like. And we saw the crypto winter kicking in. That was about here. I'm sure you all went through the winter as well together with me. And about since this summer, we've seen a pickup, and we'll release the new figures and the new study in January next year. We always prepare this for the WEF in Davos, where then the report is being hopefully read by many people. What's also always very interesting is to see kind of the top 15. So what are the largest unicorn, you can say, what are the largest ICOs happening around? EOS, Telegram, Bitfinex, top 3, and then followed by many others. What is interesting that between the last report, which was end 2018, and the new one, only 2 new entrants made it on that list. Bitfinex with a actually initial exchange offering of about $1 billion, and GCBIB launched in the UAE, in the Middle East. And all the others have stayed pretty stable. Now, I think it's also fair to mention at this point that many of these have gone through quite some ordeals and challenges. I mean, I'm from Switzerland. I'm actually hailing directly from the Crypto Valley, from Zug, and we have seen the story of Tezos, and I'm sure you're familiar. It's been covered by Wired. You heard about Telegram being investigated further. Bitfinex is being checked. So I think it shows that if the ICO is really, really large, I mean, it attracts the attention, obviously, of regulators around the world. So the story here will continue and will be exciting to see. And it's also evident what are the hotspots for ICOs. I think fair to say it's Singapore, it's the US, it's Switzerland, and of course some very beautiful, I'm a sailor, so very beautiful islands in the Caribbean, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands. But this is the state of the nation. I think what's very interesting with this report, and we discussed this in the morning, I had of course to use the beautiful Olympic arena here in Athens for that. It's kind of a battle of the different crowdfunding mechanisms, right? Because initially we only talked about ICOs, and if you remember we said there's ICO and there's IPO. So large companies use an IPO and want to do the same at a smaller scale. Now in the meantime we have seen the STOs, right? It's not true. There have already been a few STOs, about 20, 30. You can find it in the report. And this will grow, and we discussed this in the morning. At the same time, there's been a new phenomenon, so a new innovation, which is the IEO, which basically means I take my token and I launch it on one dedicated exchange, similar to what actually on the IPO is happening. There's also the idea of the DAICO, you probably followed that as well by Vitalik Buterin, which basically says this is a distributed autonomous ICO which will be governed by a smart contract basically in an autonomous way, and you can build in mechanisms. For example, if progress of a project is not achieved, the money will be paid back. It's also interesting if you see, if you read the latest article in Wired, they mentioned about a recent ICO. They raised 20 million. They didn't really know what to do with the money, and instead of just taking it and going, to Crete for a party or Mykonos, they actually gave it back. So they are the first startups that raised money and now giving it back to all the donators, all the people who were crowdfunding. I think that's a very excellent thing to do, because personally I was often critical when I saw large amounts being raised, 10, 20, 30, 50 million. And I've been a startup entrepreneur myself, so I know how it is to raise money. Back then in 1999, 2001, it was very hard. You had to really open a lot of doors, pitch, and usually you got like 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 here. Some people came just with a white paper and raised 10, 20, 30 millions just kind of out of thin air. So in a way, I feel this is a very healthy battle that's happening now in the arena. And of course, there's always traditional fundraising. If you if you talk or read the press around classic fundraising, venture capital, I'm sure some of them are here in the room, there is still, the strong belief that this will not go away. And I would actually recommend, when I coach startups, to actually look at both ways to raise money in combination. Maybe you start with an ICO to get an initial funding. Later you go to a proper VC, try to raise there, and maybe in the end you'll do another token generating event. Because the different forms have pros and cons. I'm not going to go into that. You can read this all in the report. But basically, the battle is on. So there are different ways out there to raise money. That's a good news. As a startup, you need to think carefully which one you choose, because it all comes with pros and cons. But it is very much so alive, the entire ICO scene. And I want to give you a bit of a more strategic framework, because in my capacity, I'm actually a strategist. So I do this data gathering, this reporting, not just as for us in the community. I'm also very keen to actually explain people in corporate offices, in boardrooms, what this is all about. And I'm using this simple framework that I also want to present to you, and maybe you find it useful, maybe you can use it for your own works and your own thinking and analysis of this. I say this whole blockchain, crypto, token, ICO coin launches is usually a big mush in your head, right? There's so many things flying together at the same time. So I very clearly separate three things. And this is from a corporate or from a business lens, if you're a startup, for example. So one is you can take blockchain just as a very smart, intelligent way to handle data, with pros and cons, and Tone Base illustrated that very well before. So you don't always need a blockchain. This decentralization is not always a benefit, but in some cases it can actually really bring benefits. It can actually cut down costs, and not just, we're not talking 10%, 20% costs, but we have actually worked with the Bank of England on some clearing settlement cases, and we saw how fundamental that impact can be. It can really be a factor of 8x, 10x. But this is the blockchain side, you could say the technical, the back office side. End users will maybe not even notice, because they don't notice if their data is stored in the cloud, on a server, or maybe on a blockchain. The second angle, and this is an interesting one, I think one of the killer apps of blockchain in the future is going to be tokenization of assets, because we can take a whole clumsy physical world, material world, future rights, we discussed this earlier, put it on tokens, and these tokens get managed on blockchain, and we can really liquidify values. We can have use cases where people have access to certain assets they didn't have before. We can make this more efficient, we can make this faster. So this is going to be a very exciting arena to watch in the next, probably 5 to 10 years. But at the same time, this is in a way a different play from a pure blockchain as a data storage mechanism. And then there's the whole field that I call crypto finance. And crypto finance is what we just heard also before. It's actually, money has some certain functionalities, and crypto is now entering the classic finance world. It does it through cryptocurrencies, and suddenly we see, central banking issued cryptocurrencies. We discussed Libra. Of course, also Alipay or WeChat could tomorrow decide to run a blockchain-powered coin on their platforms, right? You can also see investment products if you're following that field. Lots of interesting derivatives, lots of things being built on top of basic cryptocurrencies, and trading brokerage going, I think, quite strong right now. So as a strategy consultant right now, I work with banks, particularly on that angle. So these are the three things, and you can see how nicely they come together. You have the blockchain, you have the tokenization of assets, someone needs to issue those tokens, and that's going to happen through the mechanism on the left-hand side, the crypto finance, and then likely we will all be able to participate in these different formats of cryptocurrencies, tokens, and various ways. So we're probably looking at a pluralistic future. That is my core belief. So we're probably not going to have only one medium or one way to pay or to store money, but we'll probably see different ways to do that. And last but not least, that's my favorite slide, very hard to read, I'm aware of that. Just look at the colors, right? I made this slide 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I don't have to do a lot of updates. 2 years ago, I think in St. Moritz at the Crypto Finance Conference, I said, the main problem that we have, and this is a slide that you could also present to a banker, right? The main problem is all these beautiful things we're building, they need to be based on proper infrastructure. And if I just take color coding, I say, these are all the elements of my infrastructure, and I give a red if I'm happy, red is positive, red is strong, and I give white when it's just not there, when it's kind of empty. And I think what we achieved, there's a lot of options and ideas how to trade and services. Crypto wallets, you can have dozens of those if you want. By now, the KYC AML thing is also, rolling nicely. Risk legal compliance is up to the game. I mean, we work a lot in that field, mining, custody solutions. These building blocks are here, yes, but is it enough? No. We need a lot of more activities here. You can see risk management treasury. There is no proper risk management, even methodologies nor software really ready for what's going to come. We don't have investment advisory. So I work with banks. They usually say we're going to do a just an execution-only model where we're just going to, the client calls, says, I want this. Okay, we're going to do it for him or her, but we're not going to advise actively on crypto. Sooner or later, someone's going to do that. Sooner or later, people will need to also in banks need to have an opinion about that. So this is missing. Portfolio management is missing. There are no automated solutions. The APIs are all bespoke. We need more standards on that. Market making doesn't happen. There's not enough liquidity in the market, another issue. And most importantly, and that's why we do the report, research, please do more research. We need more market data. I personally don't believe that you can go on CoinMarketCap and just extract the data and then work with it. I think you need to consider multiple sources, need to validate them. We don't have the Bloomberg of crypto today. And this is something that's also holding back the traditional industry of entering the field, because they come maybe with this blueprint, they see the white holes and they say, dude, I'm not going in if that's not being filled by someone. But so this needs to be filled, and probably filled by some people here in this room, because it's about us. We need to fill it. We cannot wait for someone who's completely out of the blockchain field to come in and do it. So this is a to-do. And with this, I want to close and say thank you very much. It was a ride from the report, but I used my time also to give you some further concepts to think about. Thank you very much for having me in Athens.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you. Do we have some time for like a couple of questions?
Sure.
Excellent.
I'm not going to go anywhere.
All right, great. So, do you have any questions? Yes, please.
Hi, thanks. That's a great presentation. Yeah. One question about KYC and AML, and it's how can it be automated for mass, let's say, transactional values?
Yeah, very good point, and still, a big issue we need to work on. I mean, other people on this stage before me have kind of said, well, you can embed KYC and AML into the smart contract, into the token, and it's somewhere just living there. I don't believe in that. I mean, I've seen KYC AML at work in banks for too long to see how cumbersome the process is. With whom is he married? Is he maybe the son of a famous politician? Oh, what happened there? Where did that money come from? This is hard work. Sometimes it takes weeks to figure it all out. You can't automate that. But I think it's been clear that the world will not allow our beautiful cryptocurrency world to exist without KYC AML. I think that's just over. Sooner or later, we'll have to accept it. So we need to find ways to automate that, make it faster. Digital IDs would help, whether they're on a blockchain or not. I mean, that would all help, but there is none of that, right? There's lots of projects in the pipeline, but we really need to work on this.
And a follow-up on that, because of your experience with PwC, have you seen KYC and AML being done on data from the dark web right now?
Oh yeah, of course. We do that, right? That's not a secret. All these chain analytics, chain analysis, and these things, we have an own tool that we developed in-house. We can trace coins back, into the dark web when they were in a mixer and a tumbler, and obviously that's when the flag goes on red. But I mean, what about real cash money? There was, I mean, if you hold a dollar bill in New York and maybe there's some stains on it, I don't know. Are you responsible for what happened with that bill over the past 10 years? You shouldn't, right? So all these analytics, I think they serve a good purpose, but we also need to be probably realistic. I think in a proper KYC process, you should try to find out where does the lady or the gentleman have that money from. Was it a legit transaction? Was it a trading brokerage operation? But I think if we would taint all the Bitcoins that have ever gone through, a dodgy place, I don't know, I don't want to say a figure, but probably a large part of it would be tainted. So that doesn't make sense, but definitely that's going to be the way forward, and AI and automation. I mean, this is not a job you do by hand, sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I love this to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.